Mike Faulkner's the best friend a guy could have.
I mean, he was my brother.
I wish I could be as good a person as he was.
I was as old as his dad, and I knew his dad personally, and that made me something kind of special for him.
We were, cutting down trees in the woods. He drug out a complete tree.
Well, that's when we're getting firewood, and he comes out with that tree.
That thing's like this big around.
He's carrying it.
He looked like Bigfoot, just dragging this tree out. What are you doing, man? We had to cut it up to move little pieces, but he wanted that tree.
He meant the world, especially as a wrestler. I think he grew up, started wrestling at 7 years old, wrestled through high school, college, did a little bit of coaching, gave back and through officiating. The athletic department, there's not a hat this guy hasn't worn in the program, so to really give back and love a program like that means the world.
How do they not mark those rocks? How do they not mark those rocks? I'm like, Mike, I don't know, they didn't mark them. Well, that's stupid, they're in the middle of the lake. How are they not marked? I'm like, go tell her.
And we had to pull the boat out to make sure there was a hole in the bottom of it.
Didn't even dent that boat. Couldn't believe it, because I mean, we hit it. We were going. I mean, because we're behind you. Well, then you kind of dusted us.
Right. Well, we were going like 40. They're going like 35. And we didn't look back. We didn't think they were gonna hit rocks in the middle of the lake.
We're sitting there, and me and Mike are just looking at each other like, "Oh my God!" And Mike looks over. He goes, "They haven't even yelled to see if we're okay." He goes, "I better not say what he said."
The first thing that sticks out to me is just how much he loved his boys. Such a good father, so supportive. And then how much he loved Mishawaka. My first couple years as the head coach here, he had the down marker on our sideline, and I cherish those Fridays because he kept some levity in tight situations. Could always count on him to, hey, that was a great call, or hey, keep your head up, keep battling, you guys are going to be okay.
It was
We're
all
going up
glass
a staircase, it's a spiral up, he's on the top floor.
And that thing started going. Mike grabbed that couch by himself, just grabbed it. He's like, grab it, Carp, grab it. He didn't say it that calm,
right.
But he said, grab it.
Because the whole joke of it was it's that Italian leather.
Yeah, right.
That's what we kept saying the whole time. Don't let it get hurt, it's Italian leather.
Just being around Mike in general, you could be sitting in the same room, not saying a word, and just feel the loving energy he puts out to everybody around him in his life. But the guy is just a one of a kind human being.
Number of friends, I don't even know if it's even measurable.
I think Skip always said.
Everywhere he goes.
Like Skip.
Oh, everybody loved Mike. Everybody loved Mike.
Skip would always say, I don't think Mike knows how many lives he's touched.
So just a ton of great memories. But then how much of a servant he was as well. Was it 2019 before we play the regional, and it's me, you, and Mike Faulkner out here shoveling snow on a Wednesday so we can get the game in. He was always, if he was asking somebody else to do the work, he was gonna pitch in and do it himself. So just a lot of great memories about him.
I think Mike Faulkner is the epitome of Mishawaka.
He really
He's a hard-working family man. Loves his community. An honest, true guy. I mean,
I'd always tell him, man, why don't you run for mayor? He goes, maybe one day. He goes, but I don't want to run against Dave. I mean, he's a good guy. And
he was always a friend. He didn't know any strangers. He represented everything Mishawaka. He bled maroon, and everyone knows that his nickname was Beef, and partly because of how big he was. But the other part of it, that's how big his heart was.
Just as hardworking as he was, and as smart as he was, he screwed around an awful lot, man. He did. He screwed around so much. He would just joke with people, and people loved it. They loved it.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't a bad bone in that dude's body.
I'd love to see him on the news when he was so serious,
Oh yeah.
So today, and we're worried about this, and we're going to take care of this, and we're certainly going to, take this into consideration. That man is an idiot. That man is a complete idiot. I hung out with him last night. I can tell you this, that man is a moron.
Sure, the way he was talking the other night.
There's two sides to it.
Talking to different officials throughout the state, everybody's coming up to me, asking how the family's doing, asking how we're doing, and it was really cool to see that kind of support and just the impact that he's had on Indiana wrestling and, the community.
The two things with him that I always harassed him about, and they corresponded together, was his, I called it his Kindle hair.
Yeah, his
Because it
hair.
was perfectly off to the side, and his lawn.
Oh,
Those two things were high and tight at all times, and that he had
loves
pride
that
in all of that.
That
Yeah.
lawn, I mean, and it was great every time I would leave, and I would make sure
I'd
he
walk
was
across
watching me.
it.
I'd walk right across it, and he'd be yelling at. He'd come out after me, but of course he'd have to go around on the sidewalk, and I was already in my car locking the doors.
His passion was all over the place, and the number of times that he and I got into a disagreement about being on this field, you know, but it was never mean-spirited. It was never out of anger. He had something that was important to him. I had something that was important to me. The great thing about Mike was that you could disagree, and then at the end, you could hug each other, say I love you, give each other a hard time, and then move on.
You know, the crazy thing is about bringing people together. Here again, he's going to bring a whole bunch of people together for Beef Bash. And a year, you know, from when he's not even been here, and he's still bringing people together. And to me, that there says it all about Mike.